Isang ligtas at malusog na umaga, OSH advocates. Welcome to Plenary 1 of the 17th National Occupational Safety and Health Congress. This plenary session is about innovations in OSH governance. To talk about governance in the new world of work amidst and beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, we have the Assistant Secretary and Concurrent Director 4 of the Bureau of Working Conditions of the Department of Labor and Employment and the former Executive Director of the Occupational Safety and Health Center, Dr. Maria Teresita S. Cucueco.
Noel Binag, Commissioner ECOP, Commissioner Sergio Ortiz Luis, Commissioner Roble, to all our colleagues in safety and health, for my colleagues in the DOLE, I think ASec Benjo Benavides is here as well as ED Stella, and to all my friends who in safety and health, good morning, and thank you for inviting us to share with you our this session on innovations and how the DOLE has handled, and it continues to handle all the challenges, both in safety and health and other concerns related to the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, during that time, actually we had COVID as early as 2019. In January, we already started having the cases. But you know, when it also happened, we had another crisis as well. We had the Taal eruption. And it also, of course, the DOLE had to provide the necessary services to those affected. Why am I also going back to that? Because sunod-sunod ho ang mga disasters that happened, and the DOLE really had to put up and had to respond immediately, efficiently, and effectively. With the leadership of the Secretary as well as other officials of the DOLE, we had to bring in all efforts. It was DOLE together with the whole of society and whole of government. With the pandemic, we knew it could not just be DOLE alone. That was why the whole of society approach had to happen. Next slide, please. And there are very many important, as you look at this slide, you will see these pillars of action. So here, like I said, the whole of society. And now here, you have to understand that the DOLE really had to put in place immediately actions and interventions. Jobs were lost. The pandemic created such a big havoc on everyone's lives. We know that. We had to stop work because being together meant passing on the virus, and we had just had to stop that transmission. And that was why the quarantines, you had the ECQ, we're now moved to another level. But then that was one of the most important actions that had to be done. And because it had to be done, how would we support workers? That was a big and a major problem. And there were still segments of society, the essential services, that had to operate. And they had to operate safely. Otherwise, we will end up with more workers who were sick with their safety and health issues, and we did not want that to happen. So we had to look at all of that, and it is really looking into policies, what else had to be given so that social protection can continue to be given. At the beginning of the pandemic, we were telling employers, can you really give the 13th month pay? Because really there were workers who were not allowed to go to work. And for those who were allowed to work, we had to immediately look into guidelines that would look at what our national DOH was saying on strengthening the minimum public health standards. It had to be translated into concrete activities in the workplace. We also had to listen to the workers and also see that they had concerns, like even if they had to go to work, there were those who had to be frequently tested. There were those who had quarantines because they were close contacts. How were they paid? All of this, the DOLE had to also look into so that they can be provided the necessary actions, interventions to provide that relief. So taking into account where the strength of the department, we knew that policy formation was vital, but the policy will really have to come from a consensus. We have the tripartite, and even before that, we had to also listen to the whole of government, the IATF. In this pandemic, it was really it was a response provided from the whole of government, then down to workplaces where the employers, the workers had to be consulted. And because there were new policies, advocacies had to happen immediately, information dissemination, capacity building. And one of the major key strategies of DOLE to ensure that workplaces were really following these standards was really to ensure that enforcement and inspection would happen. So again, this just shows you the whole of government. We had to work with the DOH, the DTI, the DILG, and our other civil society partners, including the Safety and Health Network, where your role was so highlighted because of what you are supposed to be watching out for, to be monitoring, to be reporting in workplaces. So as early as April of last year, the DOLE and DTI already provided the interim guidelines. And following the months after that, we knew we already had more information about COVID. And then the DOLE then issued the following guidelines following this interim, the DTI DOLE 20-04A, which is more extensive, but still looking at the necessary safety and health measures on increasing physical and mental resilience, noting that mental health is one of the biggest issues now. And then, of course, we are looking at COVID and looking at all the preventive strategies, reducing transmission, minimizing contact rate, reducing risk of infection. And as you go on and you see this next slide, from all of this, we had to further provide other policy issuances so that we are going to address the mental health, ventilation, when it was already proven that the airborne transmission was there. The DOLE brought out DO 208, if I'm not, no, that was DO 224 of this year on the ventilation standards. And aside from that, because workers had to go back to work, and there were also the need for companies to ensure that there will still be more workers who can still continue work, we had the flexible work arrangement policies on the PPEs, on the cost, so that it is not going to be borne by the workers. But of course, the employers would have to bear these costs, what the benefits and entitlements are. The safety officer and the Safety and Health Committee, and all the guidelines, even in the IATF, you will always repeatedly hear the safety officer being an important focal person to monitor, to ensure that protocols are followed. So I do hope you understand that big responsibility, especially now. Then we also brought out the vaccination program policy, the labor advisory, that highly encourages vaccination. But like the secretary said, we are still not allowing the no work, no vaccination policy. We do encourage, but because the national guidelines also say that the vaccination card is not mandatory for employment, then we have to align ourselves with that as well. Then, of course, there were other policy issuances like the contactless transaction, other issuances on contact tracing, and following that, what other innovative strategies so that everything will be done online. We had the ear COVID, the safety seal, and you will see the other programs of the DOLE that is now purely online. So we know that with COVID, technology is a major pillar that we will have to use. We know that it was going to be the system where we can transact business, where we can safely transact business, safely do our activities, so that there will be no further contact, there will be no face-to-face interruption where the possibility of transmission may happen. And it just so happened that we had this already. It was so fortunate that at that point for the DOLE, there are the necessary backbone for these online services was already present, and we just had to accelerate these technology for better practices. So what did we have? We had the Labor Inspection Management Information System, the MIS. Before COVID, this was really, it continued to evolve, and we're not saying it's perfect, but at least it was really working very well, because that inspection system was always, our inspection has always been subject to so much questions about is it true? That's why this online system had to be done, so that as soon as the findings were done by the inspector, this was pre-COVID, they will send it to the regional offices, and they will send it to the bureau as the findings, so that there is no, that question of are they tampering? Because there was a time frame that they had to submit it right away, and that was why that online system, where we had all this information had to be given to us within 3 days, was already one of the major backbones or the pillars of strength in providing the necessary technology, where now we continue to develop this joint monitoring system, the checklist. That's why you see it there. All the inspectors, we still had to continue doing not virtual inspection, but physical, because there were questions on virtual inspection. And as you see the numbers, this was really done physically. But, if COVID will, and the variants will be more severe, we are also exploring the possibility of having such virtual inspections, but done properly, so that everything will be validated. So what did we see in terms of inspection? We did not stop inspection. It continues. It continues. It's continued in 2020. It continues now. And we had 3 types of checklists, and you see it here. But on cumulative establishments covered from January up to now, we have 77,695. But, you see the first thing with the different colors. These were checklists that had to be done by our inspectors. When we say it's complete inspection, it is with labor inspection, the general labor standards, wages, hours of work, benefits, the OSH, and other monitoring inspection also that had to be done. Then there is labor inspection only, which is the general labor standards and the safety and health. Remember, pre-COVID, we already had DOLE 198, and that is why that OSH checklist was also vital. And then we had the OSH COVID-19 checklist, which was really monitoring for the DOLE DTI guidelines. And it was, in the beginning, we wanted the full complete inspection, which is labor inspection as well as COVID. That was covered by 34,000. However, when there were also those that there were some regions that did the GLS and OSH only. And during the surge, when the IATF asked the DOLE to ramp up inspection for the monitoring, you will see that's why it was just for the COVID monitoring. But all in all, if we look at the total number of establishments that were inspected, it was 77,695. There were compliance rates. It has improved from the previous, and we are very happy to note that the safety and health really has improved because of knowing the value of having good, complying with all of these monitoring indicators. So these are the top violations from the OSHS checklist. You will see that first aid, you will see that, and this is why I am very grateful for both the Secretary and ED Binag, that they are ramping up also the safety officers that are needed in companies, because we see this as a top violation. First aid, we hear you, we know that the first aid training has been, it has been stalled, or it's very limited, but very soon the center will also come out with this. Then you see the others, the non-legislation. That's why we are slowly building up that this will all happen online. And for COVID monitoring, the non-submission of the COVID-19 We have already many, but we know it is still lacking. There's also another violation on the minimum health protocols. It's not ensured by the safety officer, perhaps because there's no safety officer, and that is why we really need the safety officer. And we also see that you note the non-enforcement of the OSH program by an OSH committee, because you note that it is also not present. But then you also have those compliances, making sure that the IATF guidelines on physical presence is complied. If you don't have to be present, you can do virtual. These are all parts of the compliances that is being done by companies. Following this MIS, we had to have for the DOLE support for workers who were displaced. And from our MIS, we built this establishment reporting system. So it became, online. They just submit online that they will be closed. These were the workers who will be affected. Then they will have the necessary, as long as all documents are complete, they will have the necessary approval so that they can continue and it can be provided, the TUPAD, the camp, all of these financial assistance done online through the regions you will see that it was happening online. And it did not need that you had to go to the offices. But of course, the need that they will be getting those financial assistance in the remittance centers, that would still have to be physical. But that was already just that limitation for that physical. Otherwise, everything was done online. Then we have the ESENA, which is the single entry approach for mediate for conciliation. We are also starting to do this online so that you don't have to have face-to-face interaction with the with the mediators, and you can proceed with the necessary actions to be done. In all of this, you see here the different flexible work arrangements. What you see here were all of those that were reported online. Because if you see those who had closed, those who were affected, that is why the DOLE was reporting weekly to Malacanang and to the President. And we were able to do that because it was an online reporting system from the employers telling us on the number of workers who are affected, and the DOLE providing the assistance. Again, these were all done online. So all of these innovations had to happen, and it had to happen quickly. But we were very fortunate that a backbone was present. And that was why we immediately were able to provide the necessary processes, improving the process cycle time, reducing waiting time, that it was contactless, because we're talking of transactions that we avoided face-to-face and the possibility of having COVID infections. And we were also talking of, now we are talking of other frontline services that we are developing. And namely, these are the two that we want to put up front for very soon: registration, which is online of all establishments under the Safety and Health Standards 1020, and the Construction Safety and Health Program application. So these are key frontline services that we are now developing. Before COVID, we had this energy virtual one-stop shop. There was a Republic Act which established this, the EVOS. This is very important because power generation also remains one of the crucial key generating activities for government. It is crucial because it is ensuring that we have the necessary power, the energy, the power needed to do business, to transact, and that EVOS, this Republic Act made sure that we are going to do this in a very efficient and effective way. It also made sure that it is virtual. When we saw this at first, it was a hard, we had to look at it well, and we had to see, because starting from the construction safety and health program, going into the plans that had to be submitted, it would be blended, but the application will be online. And there was process cycle time that had to be ensured. This law was not, was not bending on If you don't do this, you will have the necessary sanctions to the government offices that will not do it in the process cycle time. It was a challenge, but we have done this, and it even continues all the way. It is a closed system, even to the permit to operate. It is already there. We are now together with the DOE. The platforms are being arranged so that when we roll it out to the stakeholders, you just have to do all this online submission. Mechanical plans will still be submitted. That will stop like the online system for a while, but once brought back, then continuing again on the process cycle time. So this again is another online innovative tool, but making sure that we are looking at activities in government, in the polls, in our whole nation, where power generation will be ensured. The COVID year report is now online, and you see the numbers that we have. 57,000 establishments have submitted their year, and these 57 had 8 million workers, and from this we saw that there were now 33,000 workers in these establishments confirmed. These are just numbers. Remember, we also at our back was the National Privacy Commission, making sure that your privacy is also kept and secured. What we just needed were numbers so that we can address companies that needed perhaps further guidance and support. So we continue with our e-learning platforms. We even for our inspectors training course, they are now of course done online. We also have other issuances via teleconferencing. Usually during the rollout of our policy issuances, we do this online. You can also request for it, but as we go, we now just wait for requests. But we are also we have put on the necessary e-learning infographics and videos in our website. And the safety seal. Okay, that safety seal is, I think all of you know it. This is, again, another whole of government. It is not just the DOLE. This is with the DOH, DOLE, DTI, DOT, as well as I think the DOTR will come in. And this is a safety seal. This is a display. This is a label that companies will stick on, and these are establishments that have been inspected and compliant to the minimum public health standards. They have the necessary contact tracing. They have the necessary compliances too in terms of the registration of the establishments to the LGUs. All of the submission is online. Again, in our MIS system, that was the backbone, which we already now incorporated this safety seal, so that for the inspectors doing this, you will see that, again, these are all being done, but except for the inspection. Inspection is still physical inspection. I am not sure if our other partners in the sector like TTI or even DOT have moved to a virtual type of inspection for the safety seal. For the DOLE, kasi if you see a safety seal, DOLE only has its responsibility for manufacturing, construction, utilities, information, warehouse, and I think now, because it has been signed for BPOs. So what do we see in terms of the future of work? There is a lot, because technology, again, still plays a big role. Technology also becomes a challenge, and technology is also a problem. The gig economy has, automated systems. How can we look at managers who are in an, automated, and looking at how they can also provide, where are we in terms of the safety and health for this gig economy? This is almost like an informal sector. It is so difficult, of course, to look at, but it is what is existing now. This is the economy that is continuing and that is thriving. We have the Grab, we have Shopee, but there is safety and health concerns here as well. These are the drivers who go out at any time of the day. Do they have the proper road safety instructions? Do they know? And how are they dealing with the clients who are difficult, clients who suddenly do not pay? the pressures of this work. Again, these are also safety and health concerns that we have to address. And we have to continue updating our skills. I hope you are there also to help us here. That your personnel for safety and health it's going to be very vital. You will also have, together with in this economy, perhaps the use of robotics. And you will be working side by side. Human machine interface will be one of these challenges. How are we going to deal with that? So we need all the necessary information. We also need to be updated, and we continue to work with you as leaders of industry to help us in addressing this. So I think, yes, we are looking at new forms of work, as has been mentioned by even the Secretary, the gig economy. Collaborative efforts will really be the best way to go, because we have to listen to where, what the concerns are. It will never be from just government alone. We have to continue to upskill our workers. We have to, of course, ensure that employment continues. We have to communicate OSH effectively. And we know the value of complying with all of these safety and health standards, the minimum public health protocols, because they are essential for the lives of the workers we serve. So I think this ends my slide. Again, thank you for inviting the DOLE and sharing with you our innovations, our continuing innovations. We hope you stay with us as we also continue in this path of providing the necessary safety and health for workers for our future generation. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen.
For our open forum, may we now call on our moderator for the session, the Executive Director of the Occupational Safety and Health Center, Engineer Noel C. Binag.
To our very insightful resource speakers, let us all give them virtual thumbs up and a round of applause. The initial presentation was conducted by our DOLE Assistant Secretary for the Regional Operations, Labor Standards and Special Concerns Cluster, Dr. Maria Teresita Cucueco. Dr. Cucueco represented the governance in the new world of work amidst and beyond COVID-19 pandemic. Her presentation was very timely and appropriate in our current situation. Many of us very much are engaged in the presentation on the leader's pillar of actions, the Department of Labor and Employment's policy, strategies, and the challenges as well, and opportunities related to us in the workplace, among others. Congresswoman Janet. This is addressed to ASec Cucueco. The first question comes from Mr. Edmond Monchua, posted via Zoom. The first question is, who is checking compliance on the required ventilation system to prevent spread of COVID-19 in the workplace?
Okay, yes. Kasi DOLE issuance to, no? On the DOLE issuance, really for all workplaces, labor inspectors. That's part, if you see the ventilation compliance, sandali, sorry ha, I think, yeah. If you see there are already the checklists there. There's a qualitative and quantitative, so that it will not be difficult for owners to already assess themselves, and for our labor inspectors to also use that same checklist to assess. But that is for that is for the DOLE. But and that is still also going to be used, because in the safety seal, you will have other inspectors. In the safety seal, I already mentioned that the responsibility of DOLE is for the construction, manufacturing, information, utilities. Then if you go to the different other sectors like restaurants, hotels, the groceries, iba na ang magiging safety seal inspectors. It may be for the DTI, that's the barbershop and salon, the DILG for government offices, the LGUs for the public, the marketplaces, the groceries, restaurants outside hotels, and for the hotels, the DOT. hopefully soon we will have the DOTR for the public utility vehicles. Okay, having said that, that is still part of the checklist in the safety seal requirement ventilation standards that the O224 has also been part of that. So may kanya-kanya po yan. Again, it will be different if there's safety seal, but all in all, because this is still the mandate of the DOLE, ang DOLE inspectors.
Thank you, Ma'am Tess. The second question comes from Mr. Mark Aquino via Zoom. How do you deal with discrimination, especially to workers who recovered from COVID-19?
Alam niyo po, nasa batas actually na may penalty ang discrimination. I'm not sure if it was in the Bayanihan 1, and then also in the then the next law on the reporting of notifiable with the DOH, because there are penalties, there are for discrimination. So it is there po.
From Don Orido, posted via Zoom.
Pakita ng ulit. Namamangka na talaga ako sa dalaw. Sige, ano yun?
Yeah. Ito yung tanong. This is to respectfully express my query on the second paragraph of the section 2 of the Labor Advisory number 18, which states that in case of contracts for construction projects or for security, janitorial, and services that the cost of COVID-19 prevention and control measures shall be borne by the principals or clients of the construction services contractor. May we clarify if the statement principals or clients of the construction service contractor is referring to whom or to what entity? So this is a general question that anybody can respond to this question. From Jomir Alipio via Zoom, posted via Zoom, what would be the best starting point to establish an OSH in the workplace? Do we have templates, forms, process for starters? ASec test?
Okay. Ako na. Sige, 2 questions. I mean, I'll try to make it fast because there's another, maano na naman ako ni Sec. Okay. First, tapusin ko lang kay Don Orido. On the Labor Advisory 18, sinabi kasi there were 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph said every employer should answer for the cost. A contractor is still an employer, so his employees should have the necessary PPEs. Now, if they are janitorial construction, where there is a contract now with a principal, that is where we're saying the principal, because they require that these contractual workers should also have the necessary PPEs. Depending, kasi ito naman din ang that should also be part of the contract with the contractors. That is the second paragraph. But that the employers themselves should be providing the necessary PPEs is also a requirement. They can go to different employers, diba? Kasi contractuals yan eh. But then, meron dalawang there should be PPEs provided because at no cost to the worker ang PPE. So, for the first instance, the employer, if they have contracts like construction, janitorial, and these are still required, then it's now in the contract that it should be amended. On the second, on the template, may template na po yan. Please go to the BWC website for the OSH program. The full template is there depending on the program you are going to implement. It is very easy to follow. It is templated. Even the letters, even the policies, they're all written. All you have to do is sign it off if you want it, or you want to modify it. That's okay with us as well. But it's all there po. Just go to the OSH program in the BWC website.